I've spent 20 years crossing the world's most severe deserts and jungles. But I've never tackled the extreme cold. Now, my aim was to survive in the Arctic with dogs, cross the Bering Strait, and to film it all myself. The Bering Strait sometimes freezes and joins Siberia to Alaska. From Anada, with native Chukchi hunters and their dogs, I would trek 1,600 kilometers to see if I could survive alone in one of the harshest environments on Earth. I had chosen a good year for my first go at snow and ice.
Temperatures in eastern Russia have fallen below -50 degrees Celsius as Siberia confronts its worst winter weather in living memory. Dozens of people have died in the past week. Many more have suffered terrible injuries from frostbite.
Вам Анадырь нравится? Это стрёмный город, Что вам здесь может нравиться?
I arrived in Anada with my translator Misha. We were here to meet our guides and to learn how to master a dog team. The locals here call the rest of Russia the mainland, as if this was an island. Moscow is 9 time zones away. Siberia is the back of beyond, but Chukotka is the back of beyond of Siberia. During the Cold War, Russians were paid 3 times Moscow's salary to come out here and run things. Now they've been abandoned. There are no roads out, no railways. The airport is falling apart, like the plains. And the seas are frozen 7 months of the year. Anybody that can leave already has.
Oh, why am I here? Well, it's not because of the beautiful climate. It's rather because I hope that with the help of the dogs, help of the Chukchis and Inuit Eskimo, I'll learn how to survive and even be comfortable in this environment. That's the theory. Well, it seemed a good idea back in Shepherd's Bush, at least.
Машина там мешает. Машину там надо убрать.
Oh dear. It seems that the owner of my dog team has got caught in a snowdrift, so he's not here to introduce me to his dogs, so I don't even know their names. Furthermore, he's not here to teach me how to teach them. And 2 of the dogs have given up already, so I've got a team of 10 instead of 12. But they look an interesting bunch. These are going to be my friends and companions, and one day these creatures might even save my life. Oh, hello. Oh dear. It's not going to be much of a first meeting, I'm afraid. Dogs are totally passive. Hello? Anyone there? Wakey wakey. Hello, I'm Benedict.
They weren't very impressed. Getting them to respect me wasn't going to be easy.
Только с руки не давать, потому что они могут пальцы откусить. Надо всегда кидать. И близко не кидать. Пока ты будешь, у них реакция большая, они быстро могут откусить, а чуть подальше надо. Как приходишь, больше стой у собак возле. Ходи и просто так, как вот ты интервью даешь, так и им интервью давай. Тоже можешь спрашивать их, может ответят.
Скажи про имена что-нибудь, это важно, имена давай.
По дороге, да. Когда едешь, одна собака не работает, на всех же не крикнешь.
And will they respond as well to English names as they would be responding to Chukchi names?
Есть у нас вон Сера есть.
Sarah?
Ну,
Sarah? You
yes,
sure?
yes.
The dogs are central to existence out here in the tundra, and their needs come first. The first job of the day was to unfreeze the lock and get to the dog food. This being Siberia, it doesn't come in tins, and it's raw, frozen walrus. In this part of Russia, there are two native peoples, the Eskimo and Chukchis. Like all sea hunting Chukchis, Yasha and Tolya have to hunt enough whales, seals and walrus in the summer to last through the long winter. During the summer, he and Tolya had harpooned 3 extra tons of walrus for our expedition. Walrus is perfect. It might reek of old fish, but has everything a dog needs. Sadly, as I found out later, the Chukchis thought it had everything we needed as well. These dogs have never been indoors. They can work at minus 50 degrees centigrade. They don't have a kennel, they're never given water, and they swallow their chunks of frozen walrus whole. Yasha told me that feeding the dogs would help to establish a bond between me and my team. The theory was that if I was the provider of their food, they might begin to see me as their leader. They might have to work as a team, but there is a clear hierarchy. When it comes to food, it's survival of the fittest. Without knowing the unique commands that their owner had taught my dogs, head guide Yasha tried to teach me some commands that might work.
Ворону и не те, чисто говоря, те.
Yes, got an eye in there.
Он говорит, не сте, а те, как будто выдавливаешь себя. Ой, правильно.
Oh dear. Here we go. First day out with the dogs. It seems such a romantic idea back in Britain, and the actual prospect now of heading off with this bunch of unknowns. I'm trying to learn the word stop, which is something like khe. But even the Chukchis don't understand me when I say it. Who knows what the dogs will think. Khe. Something like that. Khe. Khe. I think I got it.
Like dogs all over the world, only 2 things get these animals excited: food and running.
Right, I've been handed my harnesses and I've got to get them on the dogs.
Easier said than done. It was minus 30, and the only experience I'd had of harnessing dogs was putting a corgi on a lead. The dogs were studying my every move, trying to work me out. 45 minutes after the others had finished, I was finally ready to go. Even Yasha had trouble controlling my team as he tried to get them down onto the ice. What chance would I have? All the dogs wanted was to run, and I didn't have the right commands. All I could do was hold on.
Oh dear. Here we go. Not such a good idea.
The dogs were in their element. They can run 80 kilometers in a day. And even on my first day of training, the town was soon left behind across the frozen sea. When the winds picked up, in effect, the temperature was -60. I couldn't even think. Wherever there was the tiniest crack in my clothing, my skin felt like it was being scorched. Just when I thought I might be the one in control, all hell broke loose. Even with an iron anchor and an ice spike jammed into the ice, I just couldn't stop them. Yasha chased after us. Maybe he could stop me from being dragged further out onto the frozen sea and thin ice. We hurtled on towards the weaker ice. This wasn't looking good. Last year, even Yasha had lost control when his dogs had dragged him out onto the thin ice. The ice broke, and he only survived by cutting the ropes. All of his team died. In the end, it was only my dogs fighting each other that stopped us.
Okay. The dogs saw a loose dog, and they've got this hunting instinct, and they couldn't stop themselves, and I couldn't stop them, and on and on and on we went. And I used every ounce of my energy to try and break them, and they went on and on and on.
You okay?
Yeah. 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 It's just so scary, because it's hard enough for Yasha. Even he had difficulty saving me and my dog team this time. Ooh. My arms. Just trying to shove the brakes into the snow. Ooh. My face is, well, it gave up feeling bits of my face ages ago, but now it's getting a little bit more serious. I'm warming it up. I'm warming it up gradually, because there's a real danger of frost nip and frostbite. I just think it's minus, I don't know, it could be minus 30. Probably a bit warmer. But there's a wind, and when you're trying to control the dogs, you can't afford to fiddle around. Ooh, can't afford to fiddle around with your garments.
After that, Yasha decided to call it a day. Now we had to get back to town. And even though the dogs could have killed me, I had no alternative but to trust them to get me home. I couldn't go out on the sledge for a few days. I now had frostbite on 4 of my fingers, and they had to be kept from the cold. But I still had to spend time with the dogs, feeding them and getting them used to my smell and the sound of my voice. I tried to win them over with some doggy treats I brought from Britain.
I've got here a fetch and cuddle fleece mouse. It's meant to squeak, but unfortunately at minus 25 degrees, it doesn't seem to be able to do that. Nonetheless, that's the sort of thing that any bored dog might enjoy. And failing that, I've got a hydrant, a water hydrant. It's plastic, but it's just like the real thing, only small and chewable. So that's a no. Water hydrant. Maybe he's the wrong generation. I'll try it on one of the young dogs. Water hydrant. No? Oh well, it all proves one thing. There's nothing that beats a good old-fashioned bit of walrus meat.
Even with the high-tech Arctic clothing I was wearing, I was still cold. Yasha and Tolya helped me to get hold of some more traditional survival gear to see if that would work. The modern clothing I'd arrived with was no match for clothes that had been tried and tested over thousands of years. The only drawback was that they weighed 15 kilos. They chose that moment to tell me we were heading off on our trek soon. Tomorrow, in fact. In the Siberian winter, good travelling weather is rare, and the next few days were going to be fine. A balmy -25. After my disastrous training session, it didn't seem like a good idea. But according to them, my dogs would follow theirs.
Looks like we're off tomorrow, and I haven't even got names for the dogs. I was thinking about calling the two at the front Donna and Blitzen. That's a joke. No, I'm not going to call that. Or Pinky and Perky. I'll think of names for them. Second row, well, there's Frank. I know, not a very good name, but he's very frank in his expression of his emotions. You can tell when he's angry, you can tell when he's sad. So he's called Frank. Then there's Jack. Well, I call him Jack because he's a bit of a Jack the lad. Always barking, always excitable, always messing around, always planning something. Then third row, well, we've got Basil. I call him Basil because there was this little fox character on TV called Basil Brush. And he used to wave his tail around enthusiastically, and that's what young Basil does. He's very young, youngest dog of the team, very keen, very bright. Oh dear, hope he's not going to cause too many problems. I don't want too many intelligent creatures around me. But anyway, he's beside Blot. Blot is a black dog that doesn't really do very much. He's just a sort of blot. Anyway, I'm sure his mother loves him. Then at the back, two old gents, Jeremy and dear old Bernard. I reckon Bernard was a wonderful leader once. He's very confident, but he loves this sort of running along quietly at the back nowadays. He's ancient. He hasn't even got a tail, or not much of one. But I love him, old Bernard.
With the walrus meat we were carrying for the dogs, and our own food and equipment, each sledge, including the driver, was carrying 300 kilos. Each dog was pulling 4 times its own weight, 8 hours a day. The dogs could sense this was the real thing. And with an unknown leader and the open tundra ahead of them, one dog, Dennis, was refusing to join in. He was a rear dog, one of the powerhouses of the team.
He's just refusing to be part of the gang at the moment, and so we're leaving him free to run along behind us. I know that feeling of not wanting to leave, but I'm sure he'll get the general urge once we're on our way.
The first stage was to Well Carl, an isolated fishing settlement 200 kilometers away, with nothing between here and there. 2 snowmobiles were coming along on this first leg, because if my dogs ran off again, there would be nothing to stop them dragging me off into oblivion. First, I had to try out the commands I'd been attempting to learn from Yasha. I had no steering wheel. The orders I gave the dogs were the only way I could control them.
Steer, 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 steer. Total and utter confusion at the front. Pointing totally wrong. They pointed left. I'm ordering them to go right. Steer. Steer, steer, steer. Steer, steer. Go on, Basil. That's it. Hup, 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 hup.
Just for a moment, I thought they might have been listening to me.
Hup, 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 hup.
But they were just following the other dogs.
Hup, 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 hup. We are on our way after a fashion. Not as many of us as I'd like to have. Got 9 dogs, and the 10th member of the team refused to be harnessed, and he's just running along free. So he's not contributing anything, which I think is very selfish. Tuck, 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 tuck. Wee. Tuck, 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 tuck. Oof. Just missed that bit of log. Glancing blow. Hup, 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 hup. This is such a stark place, and you would have thought no one cared about it really, but people do. And if you look around, every now and again you see antennae sticking out of the ground, and those are listening devices that belonged to the former Soviet Union. They were listening to America to see what was going on there, and no doubt the Americans have got a defense system, and they're listening out for what's going on out here in what would seem to be the middle of nowhere.
After 6 hours, it was time for a lunch break and to check the map. Before long, we would be heading away from land, out onto the frozen sea. It was also a chance to catch Dennis, the loose dog. Yuri, one of the snowmobile drivers, used his skills as a reindeer herder. Once back in the fold, Yasha told me Dennis had to be rewarded, so as to remind him that if he did what I wanted, he'd get extra walrus.
You're not going to get the best bit, you can get the horrible bit.
Oh, off you go.
We're so lovely. Some people would say you deserve a punishment. Looks like we're eating a chunk of rubber tyre, but actually it's whale day. This is grey whale. Yum yum. Grey whale, it tastes really good. doesn't taste fishy because whales, or at least this one, eats plankton, and tastes more like beef. I suppose it's a cowl of the sea grey whale.
I had to tackle a problem that had been worrying me all day. How to have a pea at -30 and in these furs. They were lovely and warm, but reindeer skins don't come with a fly.
Он хочет по-большому.
Не, он по-маленькому, ему трудно было даже.
А, да, так и раз вниз. Только одно вытащил и все.
That's the way, you just go...
Ага, и вытащил, и ты стой вот так.
Okay.
Зачем вытаскивать? Прям туда. Все равно по дороге высохнет. Прям сидеть никуда. Тепло, тепло будет.
Несколько секунд, да?
Coming up was the ice crossing, and the first major test for me and my dogs. This may have been the coldest winter in living memory, but sea ice has an unpleasant habit of cracking apart. Tolya went first, scanning the ice ahead for cracks. His 2 lead dogs have been specially trained to smell the most dangerous thing in the Arctic: water. And my dogs were still ignoring my commands for left and right.
Just over to my right, beyond this buckled up ice, is open water, and we cannot afford to get into that. If the ice gives way beneath us, then, well, that's the end for me, and it's the end for the dogs. And we're too young to die, aren't we, dogs? Bernard's getting on a bit, but he's too young to die. He really is. Even Bernard.
The ice was up to 1 metre thick in places, but wafer thin in others. Even if I was dragged out from the water in a few seconds, there was every chance I'd die of a heart attack. Tolya was looking out ahead. Between here and a deserted military outpost, he thought there was open water.
Crossing pure ice, but the little paddy paws of the dogs are gripping really well. Unlike the sledge, which is slipping and sliding all over the place, and frankly making me feel sick. Anyway, oh, right, getting to the other side.
We'd made it. Now that there was solid land under the snow and the danger was over, I could sit back and enjoy the ride. Or so I thought.
That could have been nasty. Both Yash and I were ploughing on through the snow, and we didn't see this yawning gap. The dogs dropped down into it and they're fine, but we wouldn't have been. We've managed to stop our sledges right on the brink. That's what happens in these white conditions. No perspective. Can't tell what's up, what's down. Feels like the crossing a giant wedding cake. Smooth, glistening snow that's like icing. I'm scratching the surface of this, what seems like such a virgin surface. Minus 15, but no wind. What a treat. Ah. Makes you feel good to be alive. These dogs are pulling 150 kilos of luggage plus me. That's another 80 kilos. Ooh, what a team.
Actually, with me on board, it was more like 300 kilos, 30 per dog, and for 8 hours a day. Head guide Yasha thought we could make it to the fishing settlement that night. There was no wind, but we didn't know how long that might last.
What animals these are. It's pitch black and they're scooting along through the darkness. Yasha talks about his dogs having a sort of sixth sense. Because even if it's a blizzard, when they shouldn't be able to see, they shouldn't be able to smell, they seem to be able to fathom their way. As if they can read the elements of Siberia. It's absolutely extraordinary to be carried along through utter blackness with such certainty.
They were working as a team, and they were following something with confidence. But unfortunately, it wasn't the other dog teams.
Hang on, yeah. We've got ourselves an interesting situation here. I'm by myself. I've lost the other members of the team. I've got the dogs, my dogs, and first rule of survival is to stay put, at least while people might be looking for you.
I was completely alone with 10 confused dogs in the freezing Arctic night. I had no radio, no food, and no gun. The wind was picking up, so the snow was covering my trail. And after an hour, still nobody had come. In the rainforest, I could last a week. In the desert, a few days. But out here, maybe a few hours at best.
Okay, a friendly light of a Skidoo snowmobile.
Мы не смогли там остановить на повороте собак. Проехали себе. До этого потеряли его быстро. Тут распутать.
We decided to camp. It was too late and too cold to carry on. Inside, it was still minus 30, but at least the tent cut out the wind chill. The only thing not frozen solid was the vodka.
And just warm me up the tin because my lips stuck to it last time because it was so cold. And so rather than use my lips, I'm warming it up.
Как хоть сделал, Аллах.
Не знаю, его так не назвали.
Из-за вас.
For a hot night, yeah.
Скажи, отлично. Во.
Whoa.
I woke up half expecting to see 10 furry blocks of ice. But as usual, the dogs had just dug down into the snow and used it as a blanket.
What a night. I lay there twiddling my toes and thumbs just to stop them getting frostbite. The chooches are all right, they slept like logs. But I woke up feeling like a log, I was so stiff.
Волк, у него у собаки след маленький. Волк.
Yeah. But where? But it was a deer.
Здесь, ага, вон оттуда.
Yasha has seen a wolf walking along this hill line. Just one, but very big, and watching us, scouting around. The dogs will chase anything, even a polar bear.
foolishness, but they will never, ever chase a wolf. They're scared stiff of them. It's almost like there's an unspoken rule that a wolf is wild. It's a wild version of themselves.
Yasha fired a flare to scare off the wolves. The biggest nightmare out here would be the dogs running off. As it turned out, we were only an hour away from the fishing settlement. The dogs went wild. They were uncontrollable at the best of times, but excited by all the new smells and town dogs, they were impossible.
Oh.
Welkarl is a community of less than 400 people. Chukchis and Eskimos have been rounded up from their traditional settlements by Stalin and deposited here. It was always on the edge of the world, but it is more remote now than ever. The Russian administrators have not been paid for a year and are becoming like Chukchis themselves, hunting for furs and seals.
We've done about 200 kilometres and certain dogs are not pulling their weight, including the flashy white dog that's out in front. He looks great, but he's not much of a leader. And I'm thinking of promoting dear old Frank. Frank, such a sweet dog. He's always giving way to everyone else, which doesn't sound like he's a natural leader, but I think that's just because he's in there in the middle. If he's put out in front and he's given a chance, I think we'll make a real dog out of him. So, Frank, now's your chance. Opportunity knocks.
A special treat. Still walrus, but for once in their life, something that wasn't frozen. It was a special brew, made by Yasha to beef them up for the next leg. The treat was almost too much for old Bernard to handle. I was one of the first Westerners ever here, and they put on a show just for us. They'd heard we'd be coming and had been practicing for 3 months.
Дорогие наши уважаемые и долгожданные гости, гости, которые приехали издалека на нашу Чукотскую землю, в наше село Национальная Урикань. Желаем вам, чтобы у вас экспедиция ваша прошла очень успешно.
It may be my imagination, but I think one or two of these dances have got less traditional Eskimo touches.
After all that excitement, we went back for the usual 6 bottles of vodka. I wanted to hear from Yasha how he thought I was doing.
Он видно по нему, что он сильно устает от нас. Прикорнется уже вот чувствуется усталость. У него уже голова не так держится даже. Мы тоже устаем, но мы показываем, все равно надо сделать сначала, а потом уже спокойно можно ложиться спать. Чего хотите? Трое дней, блядь.
We drink to because he sees that you in a situation you can find some funny things, you know.
Oh yeah.
And that's great.
У нас участковый есть Шивалин Олег, он на него похож. Вот ученик мой. Тоже длинный.
There's your lookalike in Lorena.
Ah.
Только он не худой, а так плотный.
But he's very kind of macho.
I'm very macho.
No, yeah.
Tolya wanted me to work at my relationship with the dogs. It was crucial to establish authority over them.
I'm meant to be punishing the dogs for barking, and luckily I'm too late, which means they've forgotten what they've done wrong, so I can't beat them. I didn't want to beat you anyway. It's so difficult. The rules here are so tough because life is tough, and you pay dearly if your dogs misbehave. You yourself can be over a cliff or dying in freezing water if your dogs lead you the wrong way. So you've got to be firm. To me, dogs are pets, dogs are friends. And yeah, I'm firm with them, but I don't like even the idea of beating them.
Leaving Yasha and Tolya behind to nurse their sledges and hangovers, I set off with the local policeman, who insisted on me joining him to hunt down an animal that had been killing town dogs. Once out of town, we saw it. A wolverine, which is like a cross between a bear and dog. I was amazed to see something so big living out here in such a barren place. To me, the animal was remarkable, but to the locals, it was a pest, and would make a very nice hat. We chased it for over an hour. Secretly, I was hoping that it would get away. Eventually, they killed the wolverine and enjoyed it a bit too much for my liking. But in a way, there was some poetic justice. We were lost. We had lost a sense of time and our bearings. We had no map, compass, nor food or liquid. Worst of all, petrol was running low.
In our wisdom, we decided to go off on a little hunting trip by skidoo, leaving the two Kayor, Yasha and Anatol, back in the settlement, and now we are totally lost. We followed this wolverine, this wild creature, into the middle of nowhere, tracked it down, and where are we? The sun is going down, and the tundra is so confusing.
In one direction, the settlement was about 20 kilometers away. In any other direction, there might not be anything for 1,000. We headed to where we thought the coast might be.
Just to add to an interesting situation, not only are we lost out here in the dark, but there's a polar bear wandering around right here somewhere, and its tracks are leading, well, here they're leading this way, and over there they're leading this way. So the side the polar bear was in is within about 10 meters of here.
As if this wasn't enough, now the track of the snowmobile fell off. We were stuck. I tried signaling for help.
We can see a light coming towards us, and this must be someone coming to our assistance, I hope. I hope they're not going to go straight on by. It's not going to be the grand finale. The journey continues.
Turns out he was intending to go right on by, but he stopped in the end and brought us here. So we're back within spitting distance of the dogs, and they're within spitting distance of us, and we'll be probably spitting at each other tomorrow as we get on with the next phase of the journey.
They've done it again, those dogs. Yeah, I was working this morning to be told that my dogs had escaped, but they've managed to wrap themselves around a post, and it's like they're just waiting patiently to be rescued. Yes, what a sorry bunch. They feel sorry for themselves now, but we're all very bad dogs. Look at that tangle. Oh dear. I should have joined the Boy Scouts and learnt my knots properly. It's very embarrassing. Yes, Basil. And you. Well, Blot, are you going to say something?
One of my dogs, we didn't know which, was biting through the gang line, the central rope that connected the dogs to the sledge. If it happened in the tundra, it could be disastrous for all of us. Maybe it was bumbling Bernard. He didn't look too happy when Yasha reinforced one section with wire.
It'd be nice to go along to the school to help out with an English lesson. And as I speak English, it seems a good idea. You don't get many English people.
It was the largest building in town, and it said something about the reach of the Soviet Union that they would plant a huge school 6,500 kilometers from Moscow. Now, speaking English is the only way out. The total exports for an area the size of Britain and France combined are worth only £14,000. The only solution is to learn a foreign language and export yourself.
Can you name some famous British people? Margaret Thatcher? Can you name some places in London?
Tower Bridge.
Tower Bridge, that's good.
Big Ben.
Big Ben. Westminster Abbey, brilliant. Yeah. Buckingham Palace. Have you been to London?
No.
You just know. You don't know.
It's our dream.
Is it a dream?
I never thought I'd say it, but it was a relief to be out in the middle of nowhere again. The town had become claustrophobic. We had been used to being alone out in the wilderness, and I think the dogs felt the same. Maybe it was the freedom, or maybe the simplicity of the life out here. We carried on towards the whaling outpost of Enmalen, 250 kilometers away. To get there, we had to cross an iced-up bay, cut inland from the coast, and head back down a frozen river towards the sea. It was not going to be easy.
Within about 5 minutes of us stopping to brew up some tea, dogs are conserving their energy, curled up. Some are digging out some snow to make a nest. Others are licking their feet to clear out any snowballs that could cause them a problem. And others are just licking the snow for their own drink.
I still couldn't find a dog to lead alongside Top Dog at the front. If he got injured, we weren't going anywhere.
I call that a rash decision. Yeah, are we desperate? I suppose we are desperate. Anyway, Jack, Screaming Jack, has been brought forward to replace Flash White. Dear.
Top Dog was the only dog listening to me, and the only one with an ounce of intelligence, or at least an ability to translate my accent into his language. I'd already tried Frank, who was more of a companion for an old lady than a hardened ice dog. Flashy White, the strongest dog, absolutely beautiful, but not a brain cell in his pretty head. I was driven to choosing Wild Jack, the most aggressive creature I've met in all my days of travelling. The other dogs couldn't stand him. At least at the head of my team, he couldn't bite the dog in front of him. Before we left, I noticed a rare sign of life out here in the whiteness.
Over there in the distance, a young reindeer. Fawn. Very, very young indeed. It's lost its mother, it's lost its herd, and before long, I'm afraid it'll lose its life. Because nothing lasts very long out here alone. When you're that age, that vulnerable, this place is especially unforgiving. Better get going before the dogs get wind of it.
We realized why the fawn was alone out here. We were surrounded by wolf tracks. Yasho investigated. An Arctic fox had been killed here. One bite had taken out its whole stomach. Only a wolf could have done this. A few paces away, another victim. A fully grown deer reduced to just a patch of fur. Bones, skull, everything eaten. No problem for a pack of Arctic wolves. So it seems that the wolves had terrified the herd and scattered them. Maybe the fox had come to scavenge and paid a heavy price. Even my 10-strong dog team were no match for just one Arctic wolf.
If there's one thing they can't stand, it's a wolf. They'll chase hare, Arctic fox, they'll chase polar bears until the polar bears turn around and chase them. But wolves, no. They're big and they're menacing, and they don't run from anything. So as far as the dogs are concerned, they're in enemy territory today. Don't worry, Basil.